what we've lived through the last 4 years, it would be hard to not be shell-shocked, to not expect something. I find it to be particularly disgusting, the pushback that the left has on him wanting to expose the lunacy of fiscal irresponsibility. Yeah, it's really awful. I think it would be silly to expect him to achieve these things without pushback. Yeah, I mean, there are black swans all over the place: banking failures, bail-ins, bond market problems, amongst many others. So I think we should all be cautiously and guarded, but yet optimistic. And I think if we haven't learned but to question everything now, after what we've seen, I think we didn't learn anything over the last 4 years. So even Trump's motives. Now, there are those that would say he's doing everything he can to restore our culture, which will ingratiate a large portion of the country to him. But does he have a bigger plan in store for us monetarily? I mean, after all, he is known in business for being the master of not only the deal, but also restructuring and bankruptcy. And when you realize that we are as far down the hole as we are, there has to be some form of a reset. Has to be. And is he the guy that has been chosen to usher in this new system, this digital surveillance state? I mean, the digital ID 2020. Look who's behind it. The Rockefellers, Bill Gates. I think the vaccine organization, it's called like Sarna, or I forgot the name of it. But Google it, you'll find out. And he just came out and said, it's very scary. Nomi Prince did a hell of an expose on it, on the digital ID 2020. He just came out and said digital IDs will be mandated for election integrity. A lot of people think that's a great idea. Is he the Trojan horse, or is he riding on it? Does he have something bigger in store? Is he going to reset the system? Is he fighting the Fed, or is he part of the Fed? I mean, there are a lot of things that if you think about it and look closely, as awful as that sounds, I'm not saying that that's my feeling. I'm saying if you don't question it, you learn nothing over the last 4 years. And if you wanted to slide things in or reset or do something to this system that needs to be done because it's broken, the first step or the first course of action is to show the American public just how committed you are to making America great again. And you can see that. But are we too far down the rabbit hole financially to do this open and outright, or do we have to be kind of clandestine about it and hide our intentions? I don't know. But I do think, if I were being completely honest, that we're on the verge of some form of a monetary reset. Have to be, because we've just gone too far into the debt abyss and manipulated interest rates for so long that when interest rates, real interest rates, and asset prices find equilibrium, it's gonna be scary. It's not gonna be pleasant. All of these things need to be dealt with, and maybe he's the guy to do it. First, by uniting as much as possible the country under the pretense of patriotism and nationalism and America first, and then come out and say, look, we've done all we could. Doge can only do so much, but our children and our grandchildren are in trouble, and we need to go through this tunnel like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank to get to the other end. I don't know, but I don't think it's as easy and smooth sailing as all of the things that he's done already have been. You would think it would be very bullish, but where the hell are they? Rick Rule, my friend, will tell you that 0.5% allocation exists from Joe and Jane six-pack to the Harvard Endowment Fund in North America. It's a largely ignored trade. And look, I mean, these bullion banks, they've been wrong forever on their views on gold. They're the ones holding it back. They're saying 3,000. We're knocking on $3,000 door right now. I think it is ultimately bullish. I think it needs to get through these round numbers to be recognized. I mean, gold was the number one performing asset last year in traditional assets. Doesn't get noticed. It's doubled the performance of the 10-year Treasury for 25 years doesn't get noticed. It's outpaced the S&P 500 with dividends reinvested since 2000, doesn't get noticed. What will it take for it to be noticed? Maybe some sort of an event, maybe some sort of a revaluation. But it's interesting because the central banks, if you look at the amount of obligations that are on and the rehypothecation that are on the exchanges right now, on COMEX, on the LBMA, it's a situation, as an example. Just in February alone, 59,296 gold contracts stood for delivery. That's the largest delivery ever in record. The previous record was just over 47,000. That's 5,929,600 ounces of gold, or 185 tons, in 1 month. In silver, 13,735,000 ounces stood for delivery in February. When you look at the LBMA, they are trading 3.5 times annual global mine supply in silver every day. They only have 300 million ounces of silver, what's called the float, that is backing, what is the number? I might even have it. It is backing, they have 4 to 6 billion ounces short, paper short on the LBMA. 4 to 6 billion, let's call it 5. It's not as transparent as the COMEX because it's not an exchange, it's an over-the-counter. 5 billion ounces short with 300 million ounces backing it. That's interesting. How does that play out? You look at the rehypothecation on COMEX and the LBMA, it's massive. So, yeah, I think that there will come an event where you'll see the price really skyrocket. But larger than that, these are some of the biggest banks in the world that are playing these games. Isn't an event where you see a massive bank failure? Like, for example, let's just look at little old Podunk, Lindsay, Oklahoma. Bank failed in October of 2024. No one talks about it. No one knows about it. It's the first bank bail-in that we've seen since the Dodd-Frank Act changed the bail-out legislation to bail in. You know, when Silicon and Signature failed, they were illegally bailed out. Janet Yellen said it was too systemic, and the FDIC would cover it, not the taxpayer, right? But then the other banks that failed, they were all either gobbled up by JP Morgan or other regional banks, but then quietly, little old Podunk, Lindsay, Oklahoma bank fails in October of last year. $7 million in uninsured assets, not the billions of dollars in uninsured assets that Silicon and Signature had, Oprah Winfrey's money and Hollywood money and the tech startup money. This little flyover country, $7 million in uninsured. First National Bank of Duncan, Oklahoma takes it over. Go to the FDIC website, you'll see it. The 250,000 insured, that was paid that following Monday. Always on a Friday it happens. Closed on Friday, Monday opens, Duncan, Oklahoma, First National Bank takes it over. You get 250 you get your insured. Anything that was uninsured, you get half of it. So if you have $1 million in the bank, you get 250. That leaves 750. Half of it's 375. That's 6.25. You kiss that other 375 goodbye. It's gone. They have up to 4 years if there's enough left over after the obligations are met. The credit versus the obligations. It said in the article were their debt was far greater than their credit, so that's gone. But if they had any, you get up to 4 years. FDIC has up to 4 years to pay it in the form of bank stock. Bottom line is that 375 is gone forever, and not a damn word by the media. A little regional Fox News channel in Lindsay, Oklahoma, if you dig for it, well, you can read the article. But where's the mainstream talking about this? Now, what if it's a Bank of America? What if it's a really big bank and they do it specifically to incite a bank run, to blow up the system, to reset the system? I'm not saying they're going to. But why wouldn't you know about it? Something as massive as the first bail-in since the Dodd-Frank Act changed it. Why don't we all know about it? And how many people know there are unsecured general creditors in the banking system that is still massively over-leveraged and undercapitalized? At the same time, the reverse repo market is down to almost zero, as is the end of the BTFP, the Bank Term Funding Program. So the pools of liquidity that were used to stabilize the banks when they collapsed last year in 2023 are now dried up. So is that an event? Is that a black swan that could reset the system, trigger this massive daisy chain? I don't know. And do they want it to happen? I don't know. Do they want to reset the system? Yes. Do they realize they have to reset the system? Yeah. But what is the catalyst? I don't know. But to me, the banking system is or the insurance companies, all inversely correlated to a spike in interest rates. These are the places that I would look to, if I had to guess, for that black swan that would wake people up. I think from a contrarian standpoint, it makes perfect sense. And gold has outperformed the bond market, and it doesn't have this risk, this liability. Last year was the first year in 45 years that the 10-year treasury had greater volatility than the price of gold. I do think it is. I think that it's easy to be stuck in the past. When you look at, since 1982, interest rates have fallen at a 45-degree angle, making anyone that held bonds or securities, for the most part, wealthy. Things are changing. And we are now so massively indebted at a time when much of the world is shedding treasuries in favor of gold. So yes, I think it would be a very big mistake to ignore it. And you can see it is being ignored. Gary, we're almost at $3,000 an ounce gold, and people are just completely asleep at the switch. When I tell you that premiums on gold and silver are the lowest I've ever seen in 35 years, I mean it. A silver or a gold eagle during the pandemic would have been $200 over the price of gold. Now you can get them for $85, $90 over. The bid prices are the lowest I've ever seen, ever in my career. The buy side. We were paying on silver eagles, you would pay $15, $16 over spot to buy them during the pandemic. You can buy them now for just over $3. Something's going on where the price of metal keeps going higher and higher. The demand by the central banks, which aren't only the wealthiest or the most well-informed traders in the world, is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And yet the American public, look at the SL or the GLD, it's selling. I mean, the shares are falling massively. The American public is asleep at the switch, as at the same time, the biggest money in the world is doubling down on their acquisition.